Hey, what is up you guys? Today we're going to be making a PHP contact us form. It's going to be a basic form, there's going to be no form of validation, no form of design. There'll be validation in here, but there won't be any design as such. We can come back to that if we want to, or maybe make it in another video, but first thing we're going to do, open up our editor. So I have the PHP Designer 7, which is what I'm using. You can use Dreamweaver, you can use Notepad++, which is free, and you also need a server. WAMP server is just as good as anything else. Pop it into Doodle and you'll find it straight away. So first thing we need to do is do if is set post submit, because we're going to be posting the information on the form. Now note that the submit is in lowercase. That is essential for a little bit later on. Close out our if statement with an else statement and open up our curly braces just like that. So we're going to leave the if statement for the moment. I'm going to go to the else statement. Now you can echo out PHP, which is probably HTML, which is probably the best way to do things. I'm going to cheat and I'm just going to close the PHP tags and then reopen them again. It's not considered the best thing to do, but you know, it doesn't really matter. All I'm doing here is stopping the PHP script from executing so I can actually execute some HTML. The best way to do that inside PHP would be to echo it out, but that takes too long for this, so I'm just going to do it really quickly. So I'm going to create a form. So form action equals, we're going to call this file contact.php, and the method we're going to use is post because we're posting the variables across. And the reason why I like to end the PHP tags is because the HTML then is auto filled out for me, which is good. So we're just going to do a basic form here. So let's say let's not censor it. Let's do name, do a line break, and then input type equals text, name equals name, add two breaks, then do email, add a break. Input type is still going to be text as we're still wanting the user to enter text. We're going to call this email because it's easy for us to remember. That's a train going past. And then let's do comments. It's probably the easy way of doing things. Put a break, and this one we want to be a text area. And the reason why it's to be a text area is because we want them to be able to write multiple lines of comments if they need to. Having one line of text just to enter like a whole message is quite off-putting. We could have an automatically expanding one like what Facebook does, but for time and ease of use we choose a text area, which gives us a default big box to begin with. So we can set columns to, I don't know, 5 and rows to 10. And we can always go in and change this if we want to as well. Name we're going to set to comments, because that's what it is. And this one, rather than doing that kind of thing like that, see how it automatically fills out text area? It's just kind of all built in. No train. Not to obviously finish it all off, or rather to finish it all off, we don't need anything else underneath. We just need input type equals submit. Our value, we want something to be entered into the button. We're going to put send message, and our name is just going to be submit. Now this has to be the same case as what we set up here, so both lowercase. And that is it for our HTML side of things. So we can go back up to our PHP, back up to our statement, the if statement that we created earlier, and we're gonna set some variables up. So you can clean these variables out as well, but since nothing's going into a database, it doesn't really matter all that much. So we can set our name to name, and you don't really need to do this if you're only using it once. It's just easier when you're using them later to rather than type out post name and post email just to assign them to a variable. So we can just type, later on if we want to use this email variable, we can just type the $email rather than $_post email and having to keep like that, which isn't a major issue for it as a one-off, but every so often it does become annoying. And we call these comments as well. So we're using the same names and the same case as what we call in here. So name, email, and comments, name, email, and comments. Now you don't necessarily need to do this part, but I'm going to post this code onto Pastebin. So this is just kind of if you're using this code, you just basically would set your email address to go here. Obviously you don't write that, you actually write in your email address. And we're going to construct the actual message that the system is going to send to us. So new contact form message. And then we can actually now start creating our message. So for example, we can say a new message has been sent to you from, put the email in, go to a new line. And even though you don't have to return to a new line yourself, I always find it easier to keep track of if you return something to a new line. The message was comments and new line, and then I could just carry on typing on this line and it would move it down inside the email for me, but I prefer just to kind of do this myself. So the details were name, and email. So what this is going to do is this is going to send us the following message, which is going to say new message has been sent to you from email. The message was comments, whatever they write inside the comments box, and the details are name, which they're going to submit, and email, which they're going to submit. And then what we want to do is we want to double check to make sure that they've actually filled in all those boxes, because obviously you don't want to get loads of contact information that doesn't contain anything, where people just keep pressing the submit button. So we're going to make sure this has all been filled in. So if name, just checks to see if it's not blank. So if name isn't blank, then we want to check to see if email isn't blank. And if email isn't blank, we want to check to see if comments isn't blank or has got text in. If all those have got text in, then we can say mail, and we can use those variables that we assigned just up here. So to subject and message. And what that's going to do is it's going to send off an email address to whatever you put in here with this subject and this message that we wrote. But what happens if the user doesn't enter any of the text inside the box? Well, let's see, shall we? Contact.php is what we called it. Let's go to our Firefox. Oops. So we can see from a design point of view this comments box isn't great. Luckily Firefox allows us to move it around. We can go ahead and change that. So let's say they send a message, nothing happens. Okay, so that's basically failed the verification, but it hasn't told the user it's failed the verification. So if we go back to the PHP designer, and the reason why I use PHP designer is it highlights these statements for me so I know which one it is. So I know if I click this curly brace, I'm doing an else statement for the comments. So I can do else echo you didn't fill out any comments. And then I can do the same for email, so I can do else echo, put a break before that one, you didn't fill out your email, break. And I'll show you the reason why we're putting those breaks in just a moment. Else echo break, you didn't fill out your name. And the reason we put those breaks in is so if someone just sends out a form, it just fills out the name. So the reason we put the breaks in is so it actually formats the page more for us, so that if, for example, it was to report multiple errors, which it won't do, but if it was to report multiple errors, they'd all be formatted. It's just a good habit to get into. It doesn't matter on this as much, but it is a good habit to get into. So let's say we send the message. If that message goes through, we're going to get an error. I'll get an error because I haven't set up my server. So let's say I fill these in properly. Ready for an error. It gives me an error because I haven't filled out my details correctly. So, but that's not much of an issue for the moment. All we need to do is we need to say, once the mail's been sent, we're just going to echo out, thanks, your email has been sent. and all I've done is I just paused the video for just 1 second and I've turned off error reporting, which is a fancy way of stopping this from coming up. So I'll resend that. I'll go back and visit the page, shall I? It'll be easier, I think. Great, so it's not going to let me do it. But what would happen if you uploaded this to a server, it would basically send that email and then say, Dance, your email has been sent, which is exactly what we want to do. But obviously you have to have mail set up. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just disable this for the moment. Then go back. And there we go. So that hasn't actually sent anything out because I got rid of the function to do that, but obviously you would keep that in on your server, and your host will be able to set up the email server for you. I don't have an email server set up on my computer. But that is basically it. That is how you create a PHP contact us form. Now again, we did originally create these many moons ago, but obviously the audio wasn't as good, the quality wasn't as good, and obviously we had to rush it so that because YouTube was making us do it within 10 minutes, which we don't have to do anymore because we're partnered, which is good. So thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, this code will be in the link in the description. Go check it all out. Check out all the links in the description. Like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Let me know if you want to look at styling the form, you know, maybe adding some design to the form and changing it and manipulating it, maybe adding some different variations of validation, you know, JavaScript, something along those lines. If you want to do that, let me know in the comments. If you have any issues, let me know in the comments. I will reply as quickly as I can. I'm not always available, but I will reply as much as I possibly can. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.